All right, this is definitely, Stacey, a question for you. I am a new board chair, and our executive director recently shared with me some conflicts going on between some board members on one of our committees. She shares that she's uncomfortable stepping in since these are board members. Whose responsibility is it to handle these types of things?
That responsibility, whether you want to hear it or not, falls squarely under board leadership. Yay! The joys of being a board leader, right? No, I mean, I'm glad the executive director came to you. It was right for them to bring it to your attention because that kind of stuff, as we know, can unravel a board and an organization quickly. But ultimately, in these kinds of circumstances, right, you as the board leader, as the board chair, you're in charge of leading, guiding, setting the tone for the board, ensuring the board is functioning effectively. And that sadly, and we see it all too often, right, includes addressing conflicts because people are people and people disagree and people have diverse opinions. And so people need sometimes someone to step in and even bring it back to what is the mission? What are we trying to accomplish? What is the goal? And I think board chairs that are strong and effective are really good at both facilitation and some degree of mediation because it's needed. And your ED, just by way of, because the executive director, these are the people, right, that basically evaluate their performance, determine their compensation. It's just an uncomfortable, you don't want your executive director being put in that space. That's part of why you're a partnership and a team. I do think talking to the executive director more in depth about the situation, getting the executive director's take if they have one. I mean, I do think the executive director and board chair can really be lockstep in sort of unpacking it if they have a strong relationship and unpacking the best way to solve it. So you don't have to go at it alone entirely. But I do think you need to take some leadership here. And I think, I'd suggest if it's at this level, maybe it's individually meeting with some of the board members, understanding their perspectives. If you need to facilitate a conversation, or kind of pop in and say, listen, I hear there's some conflict, or I want to help us get to the bottom of it because the organization needs us more than ever to move forward in this direction, or, how is this in line with our mission? What are our guiding principles for this? Conflict isn't always bad. I think people are so scared of conflict. And I'm one of those people, I'm not going to lie. I'm not great with, I wish I embraced conflict fully, but I have seen it when it's done. I think many of us shy away from it, but when we don't address it and when we let these sort of little disagreements or this conflict start to grow, that's when it becomes really messy. And it usually stems from not being addressed on the front end, when usually if it's addressed, most of the time people can come to agreement. And at the end of the day, if the committee can't agree on something, then that is when the committee can come back to a full board and say, we're stuck on this. We have differences of opinion, right? That's where you can use your full board feedback. So I don't think you have to necessarily be, I don't think it has to be a difficult conversation. It just needs to be a conversation. So I don't know. That's my 2 cents. Any other thoughts that you'd add to that, Andy?
No, I'm disappointed in the question because it feels like a really juicy story and we got zero details. I want to know.
You want the drama.
I want to know. I want the drama. I want some sort of a conflict. Cool. What was it? So I'm imagining all kinds of hilarious, crazy things that are probably not true. So, I think one of the ways would be to just lock them in the bathroom and let them work it out like cats, right? If you have 2 new cats and you want them to be friends, you just lock them in the bathroom until one of them comes out dominant and the other one doesn't. So I was talking to somebody not that long ago and we were talking about consensus, board consensus. And he was fully on the side of we don't need to work for consensus. Consensus is a bad thing to go for because really then it's everybody's just kind of quiet until we all agree and it takes too long to come up with consensus. And I still kind of feel like I'm on the other side where as a board, you have to remember that what we're pretending is that the 12 of you or the 27 of you are representing the needs of the community. Like you've been nominated to because we're nonprofits, we're not owned by anyone. So it's your job to sort of steer this in the best interests of the United States in the US. Like that's what you're really supposed to be doing, is thinking about community in like as a whole. And so if you can't get 12 people to agree on what the right course of action is, that means that there's a big swath of the population that's like potentially not agreeing with what you want. So you should work, my opinion, you should work for consensus as often as you possibly can. So if the conflict, if the conflict is a personal thing, I think that's a different answer. If it's like, they were, in high school, they, whatever, like who knows what a real story is. But if it's a policy difference or it has something specific to do with the nonprofit, I think that's when more people need to get involved and figure out, like, why is this conflict here? Is it really over policy? Is something that we need to discuss as a larger board, because this is something that we're proxy for bigger swaths of the population. Should we be having deeper conversations and not just like, let's get along to get the meeting moving, right? And I think that's, one of the things that I find challenging about boards is they're just kind of half asleep. They just want to kind of get it over. They eat the snacks, they say yay, and then they get the heck out, right? And I'd love to have more robust conversations. And if it makes people uncomfortable that we're having complicated conversations about policy, I mean, welcome to 2025, right?
Yeah. I do appreciate what you're saying about the consensus model, because I do lean in that camp too, Andy, because I just kind of go, everybody to some degree, you don't want any one person or one committee or one strong personality sort of bulldozing and moving things forward. And you truly, like, that's the whole point of a board, right? You're trying to get different perspectives, different backgrounds, different expertise, looking at it different ways. And that is going to be messy. I mean, anyone who knows how that is in your day-to-day life with work, with personal stuff, right? I mean, that stuff is messy. And now you've got and which is also why the larger your board, the more complicated it gets. I was just having that conversation with someone the other day, because I was saying, do you need a board that size for your size nonprofit? Because it is good to have voices represented. And also, the more voices around that table, the more it is to manage, to lead, to facilitate, to figure out. And so what does that look like? But I am kind of intrigued by what is that underlying conflict? And is it a petty, is it a petty personality thing? Which sadly, sometimes those, I mean, I feel like more often than not, so many conflicts have to do with that, which is really disappointing, because I go, can we just be adults and get off of like the junior high playground or whatever? Like, stop.
I don't know. I've been on boards where there are people that I just cannot stand. Like they're just, and again, I come with a really weird lens. I've been doing this too long, to be honest. And then when somebody comes in with, well, in my business, we need to run this more like a business and do these efficiency things and get rid of it. It's like, oh my God, would you please stop talking? Like, like it's going to take me so long to explain why you're so full of crap. I don't know. I'm all for conflict on boards, to be honest.
Because it kind of mixes it up, right? It spices it up. There's nothing worse than just that rubber, that rubber stamp board that, like you said, is asleep at the wheel or whatever. And no, I'm laughing at what you just said, though. How many times when you've done this work long enough, like you and I both have, it is easy to be in a meeting, a board meeting, a retreat, whatever, and go, that I knew at some point, let's do the playbook. Meeting 3, this probably is going to be said. Meeting 5, this is probably someone's going to say this, right? Like, it's these common things you and I have heard over and over. And at some point, it's hard not to do the like blatant eye roll in the middle of it, because it's just like, been there, done that, heard that 100 gazillion times. So Andy, I'm going to share a document that we can put in the show notes that's basically about elephants in the boardroom, because conflict is just one of the elephants that rears its ugly head. And I create these freebie resources from time to time that I think might be helpful for some of our listeners if they're interested, and help you start to unpack how you deal with some of those elephants and shrink them instead of letting them grow. So look for that in the show notes.
Nonprofit governance.
Nonprofit answers.
Nonprofit board. Nonprofit management.
Nonprofit marketing. Nonprofit resources.
Welcome to Nonprofit Everything, the podcast where hosts Andy Shurick and Stacey Wedding answer your questions about all things nonprofit.
Hey everyone, we are heading into another episode of Nonprofit Everything, and I am here with Andy Shurick. I am Stacey Wedding. We are co-hosts, and we've been doing this how long, Andy? Is it 5-6 years at this point?
I think so. We're like at episode 100 and like we're closing in on 200 episodes.
Oh my gosh. I feel like we need like a 200 episode party when we reach that. Ooh.
Yeah. Yeah. If you've got some ideas of what we should do for our 200th episode, let us know. Yeah. I think that's an interesting thing. Yeah, it's coming up. We're not there yet, but it'll be this year for sure.
Cool. Anyway, it's been a fun journey over these last several years. We appreciate you being here with us. And today you're going to find another episode full of great questions and hopefully some great answers from us. We just couldn't do this without your questions. As you know, that is the lifeblood of this podcast. And we want to know what's on your minds. And there's nothing too big or small. You've heard us cover it all. And just let us know. So you can find us at nonprofiteverything.com on the social channels. You can, track down, if you know Andy and I personally, you probably have our email addresses. There's the big, ask a question button on the website. So there are a lot of ways to reach us, but we want your questions. So keep sending them because it's what make episodes like today possible, and enjoy today. As our organization grows, we're thinking about what we need to do for staff birthdays, special occasions, and even emergencies. Up to this point, we have done things like send a cupcake to your house on your birthday, or send you a food delivery service gift card if your whole family had COVID, as an example. But as we grow, this feels harder to do. I'm wondering what others do for things like birthdays, having babies, loss of a loved one. I'm particularly interested in organizations where staff are remote. Do you do nothing, everything? Who pays and contributes, and how?
Oh, it's my favorite topic. So I've worked, Stacey and I have different like organization history sizes, right? Yeah. So I'm usually like big organizations, which means there was a committee like that does these kinds of things that are made up from staff, and they get a budget and they just kind of roll with it. But I want to pick up on the emergency one first, and then we'll let Stacey talk about like what small organizations, remote organizations can do, because honestly, that's not my expertise at all. So in emergencies, one of the really interesting things about nonprofits is that you can spend money that then is given for people in need. Right. So the sort of the overall purpose, even if you're a cultural nonprofit, you still have the basic tenets of what we're doing is finding some way to benefit society. And responding to emergency, like staff emergencies, is 100%, regardless of what your mission is. It's 100% in what you're allowed to do as a nonprofit. So there is absolutely no excuse to not have an internal employee assistance program that uses money that comes in from donors, comes in from other places, that pool of money that's set aside to deal with staff emergencies that should go through some sort of policy process, that there's like a reason that the money's being given out. So it doesn't turn into a slush fund for the development director's sick dog, right? It needs to have there needs to be some rules set about it. There are organizations, we'll put some in the show notes if you're interested. There are organizations that'll do this for you, that'll set up an assistance program for you external to your organization. You pay them money. Money can be, as part of your budget. You say some of this money is going to go into this program, and then they'll manage it for you. So that way, if it's something that's really staff doesn't want to have to come to the internal committee with the challenge, which is frequently the case, right? I've got something that I just don't want everybody to know about. So I would like to have an external person deal with this. You can have an outside organization that'll hold the money for you and then manage it based on what the rules of the program are, right? So if you need money for a particular thing, you can go to them and they'll say yes or no, it doesn't comply. A lot of times they'll also do loans too. So one of the things that you can do as an organization is you can provide a payday loan to your own staff. If they say, look, I need some money, you can say, great, we'll give you the money. We'll just take it out of your next 3 or 4 checks. That's something you're totally allowed to do as well. Again, you just need to have the structure in place, and it needs to have very specific rules about how is this going to work. I think it's a massive employee benefit that all nonprofits, regardless of your size, should have for your employees, because as a nonprofit, it's something you're totally allowed to do. It totally fits into a charitable mission in general, which means that you can do it, whereas corporations can't. This is something that we can do, but that a for-profit corporation can't do. They would have to work with an external nonprofit partner to do that. So absolutely take advantage of that. And please check the show notes for some organizations that'll help you set that up.
I love that idea, Andy. Actually, interestingly, I've never heard of nonprofits doing it. I've heard of for-profits, many for-profits doing it for employees. And like you said, then they need an external, it gets a lot more complicated because they need that external third-party nonprofit partner. But super intrigued by it. So you've actually seen this, I'm assuming, in some of the larger organizations you've worked with. And it's worked, or it's worked well. Like, are there any downsides to it that you've seen?
Well, there probably are. I mean, this is going to sound really obnoxious, but in organizations where I've been in charge of it, it runs really well because we have very specific rules about how it works. Like if I was going to create this into a new organization walking in and this didn't exist, if I was going to create this, the first thing you need is a staff committee. So you're going to put together a group of people internally that are effectively the board for the fund. So this is your internal board. It doesn't need to be external people at all. It can just be staff members. And they meet once a quarter, and then you give them a report on how the fund is doing. You can have money taken out of paychecks. So as the CFO, I would always have $20 taken out of my paycheck to go into the fund. So it just comes out of my paycheck. It's actually a charitable contribution for me, even though it's going to employees, because it's going back to the organization. So it's going into your organization. So I can take, not that anybody can take the charitable deduction anymore, because we're done with that apparently. Right. So it could be that. But just as the CFO, like, I'm making enough money. This is important to me to make sure that the rest of the organization is supported. So we encourage executive staff to at least put a little bit of money. It could be $1, $2 per paycheck into this fund. The organization can also put money in. You can budget, like, we're going to put $1,000, $5,000 into this fund that starts. And then that can be used for 2 things. It can be used for sort of as a fund for managing payroll deductions for people who want to take payday loans from the organization. I always set these up as 0 interest loans. There's no fee to apply, because what I'm trying to do is keep the employees in my organization working for us. I want them safe. I want them healthy. I do not want them to go to predatory lenders and give away the title to their car, which means that they can't get to work, which means that I'm looking for a new employee. So from a CFO perspective, it's very self-serving. Like, I want to make sure that the people that we've hired can continue to come to work, and like getting them into these horrible situations with credit cards and payday lenders is like something that I would like to prevent if possible. So a lot of it is payday loans. There are rules about how often you can't take 2 at a time, like the reasons that you can do it. Like, and interestingly, we would create a form. I'd create a form that has like what the rules are. Like, this is how it works. This is what you're expected to do to pay it off. Like, it has to come out of your paycheck. You can't return it to us. You can't ask for more than X number of dollars unless there's a really compelling reason. You have to pay it back to us in a certain period of time. It can't be infinity. $1 a paycheck for the rest of your life is going to work. It has to be faster. And then there are other situations where that would warrant, I mean, at one point, one of our employees had his brother die in Mexico, and he did not have enough money to fly to deal with it. So the fund gave him a grant to be able to pay for his plane ticket. And I'll tell you, that was an employee for life. Like, that employee is never going to leave that organization ever, because we were there for him. Yeah. And then when you report back to the committee, like quarterly or annually or whatever it is, you don't have to say like this person got this thing, this person got this thing. You can say, we gave this amount of money in payday loans. This is amount that's been paid back. This is the amount that went out in grants, right? And it just needs to have a process that's usually limited to one or two people that makes the decision yes or no. And the trick is that the decision should almost always be yes. Like there should be very few cases, and it should be very specific cases. Like you've already got one you haven't finished paying back, so you can't have another one. Yeah. Like it has to be like cut and dried. These are the reasons. It can't be like, you asked me for this, but I know it's because you want to buy Christmas presents for your kids. Because one of the things that we would see is that in November, the number of requests would go up. In January, the number of requests would go up. We suspect that's people just needing extra money for the holidays. And, it's not, we would not want to put ourselves, they're going to pay the money back. We've got money in the fund. The whole purpose is to make people feel good about us being their employer and about working for us. So that's how I would structure it. I'm happy to, if people want more information about these kinds of things, I'm happy to talk offline about that. If you want to call me and see, I've set it up at a couple of different nonprofits as well. Like for a while I was working with an HR company. I wanted to like see if we could figure out a way to sort of expand this out to a whole bunch of nonprofits at once. And like, they just got all greedy and I just gave up on it because I can't be bothered. But it's something that lots of nonprofits already do. And I think it's a huge benefit, both to the organization and to the employees.
It is. That's a super cool idea. And I can see how the employee loyalty goes through the roof with something like that. I mean, don't we all wish, we had someone who would take care of us. I think back to the days when I worked at the community foundation and we would actually design and run these programs for different corporations. I mean, one of the parts that was difficult, and they actually appreciated having a neutral third party. It provided them some cover, but it also, it also provided, we had to do a lot of due diligence and say, all right, we wish we could just take your word on it for it, like whatever this thing is you're applying for, but we actually need you to show us some proof of, whatever, it's a funeral expense or something that, we have some backup documentation so that we're not just saying, sure, this person has a sad story, right? Because then, it can totally get taken advantage of. But I really, really think this is a cool tool that people could put in their belts for nonprofits. That's another recruitment retention tool as well. It's awesome.
Mm-hmm. I think it worked really well. And I'd say any place that I've ever implemented it, it's like 95% loans, 5% grants.
Yeah.
And it's because the employees don't want to take advantage of the fund because they know where the money's coming from. Right. And they know other people are using it and they don't want to wipe it out. And there are times that we had to pause it. Like every once in a while, the amount of money in it would get too low. And we'd have to say, we have to pause loans right now because we've got too much out and we have to wait for it to sort of refill. And people were fine with that. Like nobody, they know it, they talk to other employees. Everybody's aware that it exists. I think it's a fantastic benefit. And it's something that, again, this is totally exclusive to nonprofits. Like for-profits cannot do this without having some sort of third-party external partner who's going to try to suck money out of it because they want to make cash on somebody else's suffering. Like that's not us. We're not going to do that. We're going to do it the nice way.
No.
So now you get to talk about birthday parties and cupcakes. Yeah, I was going
to say, wow, okay, that sounds so lighthearted after that, right? I think anytime you're an organization that's growing, particularly it sounds like you're growing remotely. I think having a simple, scalable system is what's best, right? Because I think you don't want to overcomplicate it. You're trying to do something nice. And so I think one of the ways you can do this is you could put together small committee to brainstorm some ideas of what would work, what wouldn't, because I always think there's more buy-in when it's not just like a top-down, like whatever, the CEO or ED just makes this decision and figures it all out. Like I actually think staff like to think about these kinds of things. Some staff do and want to think about like, how do we boost morale? How do we like let people know we care about them and we know what's going on in their life outside of work? Oh, it's their birthday or whatever. So I think getting some staff buy into it. But a couple of things specifically that I've seen that I think are super cool and simple is the idea of almost like a sunshine fund where the organization puts in, I don't know, I'm just going to use $500, right? And every year it goes into the sunshine fund and it's clear and, it's described like this is for use, $5 whatever gift cards or a lotto ticket or whatever, and a card for someone's birthday. Like everyone gets something like that. It's got some of the ideas of here's what, depending on the circumstance, if it's a celebratory moment, the department head, or if you're leading a department, like you can decide, you can put, you have so much you can allocate from this kind of sunshine fund. So I think I've seen, and so I've seen it where both the organization funds it, but I've also seen it where staff will be invited to, if you want to put in $10 to such and such fund, like just so we can use that. So for organizations that, are like, all right, we just want to see if staff want to participate and do this, that's an option too. I actually like it more philosophically if the organization invests in that, because it's not a huge investment and it's just, right? Like I feel like I don't love it when I hear organizations ask the staff to put in the money, because I just think that that can get dicey. And I think it's worth, like, it's a small price to pay to actually recognize people on special occasion or whatever. But I do think being clear about those special occasions, because let's be candid, there could be a million out there, right? Like there could be so many special occasions. So it's got to be clear. Do we just do this for birthdays? Like, do we do this for birthdays and something that's just like a card for loss of a family member? And sometimes I think just a personal touch, like, does it even have to be a monetary or a tangible gift? Could it just be, sometimes people just, like, if someone who is higher up in the organization, depending on your size, like called and just said, hey, Andy, like, I know I don't get to talk to you much, but I know today's your birthday and I just wanted to say happy birthday. I hope you're doing something fun with the family. Like sometimes like something like that goes a long way. For remote employees, there's virtual cards, right? There's virtual everything these days that people can sign. The one caveat, though, I want to say with all these ideas is that, I mean, besides the fact that you need to be consistent, you need to have clear expectations about kind of what this pool of money or that the organization's providing will be used for. But I also think that you really need to make sure people want to be acknowledged. So I'm laughing when I share this, because I'm thinking of when my dad was alive. He absolutely was private and could not stand anyone knowing anything about his personal life. Like, and he didn't actually want somebody to send him something for his birthday. And I remember one year my mom and I didn't learn this until we made this mistake of where we had like this bouquet of balloons or something delivered to him at work. And he was absolutely furious and mortified, because he was like, I don't want all these people like that, that I don't have a relationship with knowing it's my birthday. He was private. So I also think there is this balance with any of this, that perhaps as part of kind of this, I don't know if it's when a new employee starts or what the process is, but saying, hey, we like to, if you want to be acknowledged, we like to do something, a small little something on your birthday or whatever, like put in that like boilerplate or talk to, and just say, is that something you're interested in, receiving, or would you prefer to just like have it be quiet? Because I do think some people don't want that, right? And then other people are like, where is my, like, did you decorate my cubicle for me or whatever? Did you send me the thing, right? Like, so you've got two extremes, but you got to respect where people are at. So I think that's the one thing that people miss with these. They assume everyone wants to be recognized for their birthday or something, and not everybody does. And so I think it starts with that, and then you move on from there.
Thanks for joining us today. We appreciate that you've taken the time out of your busy nonprofit schedule to slot in some Stacey and Andy nonsense. We appreciate that a lot. Be sure to share it with folks. One of the ways that, we shouldn't have to tell you this because everything you ever listened to probably says something very similar. Like the way people find out about this is when people share it. One of the things you can do, like every time an episode comes out, it gets dumped onto Discord, LinkedIn, and Facebook, and also Blue Sky now. I figured that one out. So if you're on any of those, come find us. And all you need to do is like click the like button or the reshare button and just like post it to your own timeline. And that all of a sudden gets us like, we get a bump in listenership every time somebody does that. So that would, if you want to say thanks, Andy, thanks, Stacey, for something we told you today, or something new that you learned, that would be a really great way to thank us. We really, really appreciate that. Send your questions to nonprofiteverything.com, questions at nonprofiteverything.com, or go straight to the webpage, click the shiny yellow button, and that'll get that directly to us. And thanks so much again, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks.